Welcome back to the Passion Pit, the podcast that spotlights the movers, the shakers, the indie art makers of New York City. I am Jay Michaels. Now, September might seem a long way away, but there is already major talk about a new off-Broadway musical rolling in. The Green Room, a new concept musical set in a college, you guessed it, green room, which for those of you who call it another name, is the waiting area for actors in a theater. It tells the story of four friends and how they plan to realize their dreams of making it off-Broadway. No, you didn't hear wrong. This musical gives us the exuberance and fantasy that only a musical can give, but telling us a very real, very possible story. We will do several installments of this over the coming weeks, where we'll meet the composers, the cast, and other integral players. But to start us off, we have two guests today. Stephen Miller, the artistic director of the production organization, Miller-Coffman Productions, and Jessica Jennings, director of the musical, who is part of an indie theater legacy. Curtain up, backstage, in the green room.
Good afternoon, Jay.
Good afternoon. Stephen Miller, if I'm on the line, you're on the air.
Beautiful.
Good afternoon to you. You sound so calm and relaxed for someone who's bringing one of the biggest shows off Broadway into New York in September. How's everything going?
Everything's going great. Putting things together, making sure everything's going according to plan. That's always the hardest part, but worth it.
Of course. Tell our listeners about the show and about yourself.
Well, The Green Room is a show that Miller-Coffman Productions is bringing in from Los Angeles, where it had its debut a couple of years ago. And this will be the New York premiere for the production, and It's very exciting. It is a story of four college students beginning their career through the college theater program with a dream to make it to off-Broadway, not even Broadway, off-Broadway. And it's the trials and tribulations and questioning of sexuality and, all of the questions that we have all experienced, going through college and high school.
Indeed.
A lovely musical with, heartwarming songs, funny songs, just lots of wonderful attributes to a show that's new and, focused in the millennial aspect of things, but still a story that anybody can, see and get something from, and it leaves you wanting more, but it leaves you thinking, what's my next, thing in life.
Indeed. I was really impressed when I read up on this because the notion, yes, this is such a purely millennial piece because it's the rationale behind it. They're not sitting there and thinking with stars in their eyes they're going to be, tap dancing on Broadway. They're thinking about the reality of their career. So I think that's marvelous. It sounds a lot like Merrily We Roll Along, but with far more focus, if you will, to its audience. It's also for people. When we hear musical, we think, tons of people up there with costumes. We have four people on that stage.
Exactly. And that's probably the hardest thing that we've faced, especially with casting, because, there's so many talented people in New York City. And of course, we want to cast them all. But with a cast of four, no huge chorus, no huge dance numbers, it's Broadway quality, but it's off Broadway, but it's such a small piece, more or less, but it offers the punch that Broadway does in four characters, a full ensemble piece. And, everybody shares the stage, everybody has the same amount of stage space. And, it offers everything that one would want in a musical.
I think it offers even more. Nowadays, we're looking deeply into immersive theater where the audience is so much more involved. You're letting them literally sit in the green room with these 4 people. There's no suspension of disbelief as 57 people and 37 sets roll in. This is, we're literally in their lives, which is such a refreshing change in terms of the theater. So I congratulate you on your choice of musical, because it's spot on to what people need nowadays.
I agree.
Now I say you. Tell us about you and Miller-Coffman. Tell us about you and the Empire.
Well, myself personally started in the theater industry when I was 3 and have been affiliated with it now for 31 years. Loving every second of it in all aspects of life, from New York to New Hampshire, where I was born and raised. I have taught theater through the drama program at a middle school in New Hampshire with between 60 and 100 kids. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And then I had the opportunity to create Miller-Coffman Productions in 2015, 2016 with a true belief to deeply impact the audiences and cultivate empathy and fellowship for all humans, to make the world a better place with a more welcoming feeling for everyone, especially if they are feeling unwelcome or, relegated to the outskirts of society, but also to produce accessible theater works at the highest level of artistry with incredible details of set, costume, props, and historical accuracy. Some of the shows that we have done have been set in either the 1800s, 1940s was a big one that we did about women at home during World War II. And now this one, very specific to the millennial age, which is going to be the newest style theater, but definitely one that we have plenty of knowledge about.
For sure.
And it will be our second musical that we have produced, that Miller-Coffman Productions has produced.
Now, I'm trying to figure this out myself, so I welcome your wisdom on this. I am not a millennial, and I have seen so many generations of theater goers, of artists coming and going for the years that I've been doing this. But I think the millennials are that much more impactful. It's like a real paradigm shift. It's like a real change in the arts. Are you finding that, considering you're looking for works that touch your audience, are you finding that the millennials are even more powerful in terms of their decision making, in terms of who they are to the arts?
That's a very, very good question. And I have seen, especially working with this show and working with actors that are, true millennials, in their 20s and younger, they have such a drive for life. And it's a drive that has been seen through the generations, but even more so now, especially in the theater arts, because of their drive for, trying to find new works and even bringing back some of the classics. But it's the new works and trying new things. And like you said earlier, the immersive experience that has never been seen in the New York theater, to the best of my knowledge, until only recently. So taking those new ideas and, adding a spin on it, like they did with the latest Oklahoma on Broadway.
Right.
I never would have thought that would have been something. But here it is, and it's very successful. So, immersive theater is, the new theater, arts of this generation and, the later generation. So that's the thing that we love about Green Room, like you said, is a very immersive experience. You're literally in their lives, and that's the direct point that we're trying to make here is, you enter the theater and you feel like you're part of the show, and you're sitting there in the audience, but you're still part of the show. You just feel like you're part of the show because it's so personal and so direct towards the audience through the eyes of the actors and through the words of the actors. And like with any theatrical show that you go to see, they're of course singing or acting to you, but with Green Room, it's so much more because you just feel like you're pulled into the show.
There's an old communication term, haptics. You see it a lot in adventure movies because, when something flies, when there's an explosion or whatever, the audience thinks it's going to hit them and they actually jump. It sounds to me like Green Room is employing that the audience is really, like you said, that they're going to express their hopes and dreams right there to their friend sitting in the audience, not an audience member, but they're just talking to other buddies in that green room. And I think that's an amazing effect.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see the crowd just sit there and feel like they themselves are living those lives. Now let's talk about the theater for a brief moment. You're ingenious, you. You picked one of the last remaining original theaters that were part of the off-Broadway movement that really changed the face of theater back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. What made you go for the American Theater of Actors?
Well, I have worked at the American Theater of Actors in the past with some productions, including some with our director, Jessica Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
But the Serene Sargent Theater specifically just called out to me because when you walk into the lobby area of the theater, you feel like you're entering a green room. And a green room, for the listeners that may not quite know, is a safe place for actors to go before they enter the stage. So it's kind of like the lobby for them, with couches or tables, where you can do some work, or a makeup table. But for the audience, you're entering into this lobby that, it feels like a green room. So then you enter into the actual theater, and our plan is to continue that feeling. You may be sitting in the audience, but you're still going to be feeling like you're in a green room. And that's, the ultimate goal here.
I've been to the ATA a million times, and yes, you're absolutely right. There's a couch, there's table areas, there's photos on the walls. You really are entering into a very safe space, if you will, a very comfortable space when you walk in there. I was wondering why you picked that particular one, and of course now it makes total sense. The audience walk into their green room before they walk into your green room. Really
Absolutely.
Cool. Now, you said you've worked at the ATA before. What have you done there, and in what capacity?
I have stage managed a few shows. I did the Cherry Orchard that was directed by Jessica Jennings, and I did 3 one-acts for The Proposal and what's the last one?
It was another check off.
So
yeah,
good. It's so hard to. They're all so good.
They're also check off. Yeah.
Yes. But that was where I initially, started working there. But I had seen shows in the past at ATA, again, that Jessica directed, but also James Jennings has directed, and other shows that I've been invited to. And it's just such a wonderful space to be used and utilized for off or even off-Broadway. And, it's highly recommended by me.
There you go. I think it's a very clever tactic because you're bringing an off-Broadway play that is really changing the face of off-Broadway to a theater that changed the face of off-Broadway, if not gave it its face for that matter. So that's very clever. You also worked there, I think, with my old buddy Laurie Ray Wah.
I have, and I stage managed a show of hers, but have also seen other works of hers. And again, fantastic experience. And,
now,
it's just such a welcoming, so welcoming there.
Manager, welcoming. Firstly, that's the position that welcomes the cast, the stage manager. But talk about stress. Okay, I guess you don't have enough with your company handling the production of the show. You want to be a stage manager also. Tell me about your life as a stage manager. That's a tough job, man.
it is a tough job, but someone has to do it. But the stage manager is basically the eyes and ears of the entire production from the bottom up, being there at every rehearsal, notes, the usual, but also behind the scenes. You're the one that takes care of the actors. And in my case, I have gained the nickname Mama because I'm the stage mama, and actually it was just upgraded to Mama Rose.
Thank you. I was going to figure a way of asking you. I see on your signature all the time, Stephen, quote, Mama Rose Miller. And I'm like, where the hell did that come? Okay, now I got it.
That would be it. I'm the one that is there at least 2 hours before the curtain goes up, make sure everybody has water, that everybody's doing okay. If someone is upset, I will sit with them. I will talk with them. I will care for them as the stage mother. And it's a wonderful connection to build with your actors, because then you can send them on stage and know that everything's going to be okay.
Wow.
And if it needs continuation, we have our talk, we go on stage, we do what we need to do, and come off stage and talk again. I've been stage managing for years now, but I absolutely love it for that sole purpose, because, someone, has to be there for the actors, but also the director, technical director in a musical, the music director, but there's so many pieces that come together in the end, but it takes a strong person to be able to juggle each person and personality and specialty, to bring it all together, because everybody is different in this world. But having the capability to take all those personalities and make it all mesh together is the struggle, to say the least, but a good struggle, because in the end, when the director sees opening night, and a lot of times directors don't come back, or they'll come back for one or two other performances, it is the stage manager's job to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch.
Oh, indeed,
and
yes.
should there be an issue, it becomes the stage manager's job to either delegate and bring back the director for whatever the purpose may be, or to fix the issue on their own. And having the knowledge to be able to do that is, you can learn it, but it takes experience, to really be able to to jump into that role, as director, as producer, as, whatever it takes.
Oh,
to
indeed.
Make sure that the show goes off
without
a hitch.
Now you are in two very powerful positions with this show. Do you find that they help each other, or do you find it's stressful to separate them? What's it like being in those two power places?
Well, as artistic director and stage manager, yes, it can be very, very stressful, but I thank my team profusely on a daily basis for coming together as a team and making it easier on me, when I, specifically if I were to ask for something as artistic director, to see that it gets done. And that's when I can step into my position of stage manager and see that it follows through.
Right.
So really separating the two is not per se all that difficult. There are times when a bump happens in the road where it does become difficult, but having a great team is extremely important, because we all work together and want to see the same vision come to life.
Very well said. Very well said. Okay, my last question, and I'm stealing this from a story I heard the other night from Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane told the story of one of his first Broadway appearances where he worked with George C. Scott. And years later, he was working with him again. And because of the situation they were in, George C. Scott turned to him at one point, looked him in the eye, and said, "Do you still love it?" Now, it obviously meaning the arts, performing, the entertainment industry, etc. So I'm asking you the same question. Do you love it, and why?
I love it every day of my life. It's the only thing that I would ever want to do, and I'm very, very fortunate that I am able to do it every day and center all of my attention around it. The reason that I love it is to work with teams and to share the arts, and something that Miller-Coffman Productions is actually doing in the near future is we're going to be reaching out to more kid-friendly possibilities, like bringing in and utilizing an autism-friendly performance, which has become a new item that theaters are doing because there are so many kids out there that either don't have the opportunity to see theater because it's simply too expensive, which we utilize agencies to offer very inexpensive tickets. We work with the High Five program, which it's $5 to see an Off-Broadway show.
They're a great group. Oh.
I adore them. But after that, we want to move up to an autism-friendly performance to allow autistic or mentally challenged children the opportunity to come see a show with dimmer lights, lighter sound, and a free place to step out, should there be an issue.
Wow.
So being able to stand up or have snacks or, just to be able to go into the lobby should it be too much. I have, autistic family members in my life, and working in special education for 5 years as a paraeducator, I really, really took notice of how limited some of their lives have been with the arts. And actually with the program that I started at the middle school with the drama program, we included these troubled children or challenged children, to be able to be part of it, whether it's on the stage or off, putting together costumes, building a set, and it's so important to them to see the smile on their face and to know that they've done something and to see their name in the playbill, and to share that with their families and their friends. It's something that really hit me hard at the time, and I just want to continue that vision, which is one of the big visions of Miller-Coffman.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's absolutely wonderful. It's funny you say about troubled and challenged in these words. We give them those words. I have a client who by his own admission is on the spectrum, and one of his shows just went open-end run that he wrote. So it shows that, okay, well, maybe we're saying that, but the power that they have within them, if we're a benevolent soul like you and take the moment and look at them, the power within them is absolutely incredible. That is such a nice thing you're doing. I think it's terrific. I've got chills. I'm very excited to hear more about that. But first, let's open the green room. We'll talk about that
step by step.
There you go. I'm going to Stephen, thank you so much. This has been enlightening. This has been wonderful. I'm going to tell our listeners exactly how to get tickets, when to get tickets. You better get tickets because this is the show to see for the fall this year. I wish you all the luck with it. I look forward to it. I'll be there. Have a great time and continue to be Mama Rose to your wonderful cast.
Thank you.
We'll be talking real soon.
Absolutely.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Would you like more people to attend your show? At Applaud, we combine artificial intelligence and human intuition to expand your audience and increase ticket sales. For a limited time, we'll help you fill your seats free of charge to prove our value. That's right, we will promote your show at no cost if you begin right away. Sound good? For more information, email promote@applaud.com.
Now, I alluded to Miss Jennings being part of a great legacy. The Off-Broadway movement was born out of many theaters from the 60s through the 80s. but sadly only a few remain. La Mama being the most historic, with the Medicine Show Theater and this Midtown mansion following along. The venerable American Theater of Actors, founded by and still run by James Jennings, still brings us quality entertainment on almost a nightly basis in the middle of Manhattan. His daughter Jessica has achieved great respect and notoriety on her own in many and varied disciplines in the arts. So now, from the Barrymores to the Jennings, here's Jessica.
Okay.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
Not bad. Jessica Jennings, if I'm on the line, you're on the air.
Oh, fantastic.
A lot of people are shocked, but considering your background, I gather this is just a romp in the park for you. I could probably speak to you for about a week and constantly have a different project as we're chatting. You are one busy individual, and you come from a family that it's probably in your DNA. So let's start at the top. Tell us about you. Tell us about Jessica Jennings.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I was raised in Midtown Manhattan and, born to theater parents. I spent a lot of my youth and then my career in the world of dance, but always returning back to stage intermittently. I did a lot of commercials as a child. So I've just always been immersed and saturated in the world of entertainment. And that's kind of a tidbit there. I started a dance company straight out of college when I came back to New York. And I just, at some point I couldn't dance anymore. So I did officially retire from dancing and, always coming back to theater. And after performing for decades, I did, well, since being born, basically, I did, at some point, decide to direct, and kind of the rest is history. I mean, it's been a very easy transition. I've spent so much of my youth and professional training doing dance and choreography that directing is a very instinctual thing for me.
Instinctual is an understatement when it comes to the Jennings family, because you're being very humble. You're talking about being in theater all your life. You are part of the Jennings legacy, if you will, that started the American Theater of Actors, which is one of the original spaces of the off-Broadway movement. So you were there for the paradigm shift of off-Broadway, which is amazing. And then you yourself, you co-founded, I believe, Ripple Effect Artists, as well as your dance company, as well as several others. So, and that's technically the company was founded just before I came on board, and but I've been there since we formally, since basically year one. So for almost all of Ripple Effect Artists, I've been right there. Came on as president, and I did take a hiatus for 1 year, and then came back in as president. It's been a great community to put my skills in a different way, to kind of learn the administrative side of nonprofits and and build a strong little core of administrators. So it's great because it's the other side of things, and So you've seen the whole world of theater, whether it's been through your father James Jennings in the ATA, or it's been as a dancer, as a director, as an actress. You've just seen it all. If this was like 1920, I'd say, okay, well you're that famous vaudevillian born in the steamer trunk.
Well, my mother will tell you that I was in her belly when they were building the stage, I
there
was
go.
Propping up the stage, and my dad was hammering it together. So
There you go. So there it is in the DNA. Now let's get to the two big ones you have right now. The Green Room. Speaking of paradigm shift, the Green Room, this great big intimate musical coming to New York in September, and you're helming this. You're directing what is going to be a major moment for musical theater in New York. Tell us about the Green Room.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm thrilled to be invited onto this project. I think the producer had me in mind for several months before offering it. You know, he was like watching me direct other shows and, you know, seeing how I was. And I think I naturally had that musical theater thing in me even when I was not directing musical theater. I love having actors move on stage and building an ensemble, and I think that he saw that.
Well, that's your dance training right there, sure.
Yeah. And, well, it's fun. I mean, the Green Room, when I read it and then listened to the music, it just made me happy, and it had this smile on my face, and I was like, this is joyful. It's really just joyful, and it's a nice look at the inner workings of, you know, like behind the scenes for thespians. So it's kind of like a nice relief to just go, I want to put on this fun, happy piece. And it has depth. It definitely has some interesting, it shows the conflict that the artist suffers. You know, do they hold on to their dreams? Do they have to forfeit their dreams? And some other things about, like, do you have children or not have children? So it starts to touch on some issues that are very important to, you know, everybody, but especially in the theater when you know you're about to go into a profession where there's going to be financial struggle. So do you take that? When a job comes along that's outside your field, do you take it? You know? One of our characters has an opportunity to go off and be an architect. He struggles with that. You know, is he going to take that job and give up his dreams? And one of our characters struggles with this concept of she might be pregnant. You know, what is she going to do? Or what? And then her mate. You know, like they're not seeing eye to eye on that. You know, it's actually kind of funny. You say me being born in a steamer trunk and all that, that kind of comes up inside the musical too. If this girl is pregnant, then, you know, and her boyfriend is like, well, we'll just have the baby right here in the Green Room and we can put a little crib over there. And, you know, he gets wrapped up in this idea of, you know, like the glory of the starving artist and, you know, just being that theater family. And, you know, so it takes on these heavy, serious issues that our community faces, but in a fun way, you know, a little tongue in cheek. So
now, real interesting thing about this is it's a millennial musical. I'm not a millennial, and so I've seen many a generation go by in terms of performers and audience, in terms of the arts. And these problems are very real, and they've been perennial. They've been there. I know people much older than I am who tell me the story about deciding to have children and to give up their dreams and everything. So it's common stories. But now this is from the millennial point of view. Now, you're far closer to being a millennial than I am. How has it changed, or how has it changed? These perennial problems, are they? Do we see them differently from the eyes of a 20-something nowadays, at least?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly millennial either. I think it's always changing. I think right now, when you talk about the idea of getting pregnant and do you even have an option of having an abortion? I mean, that is incredibly timely, even more so than it was 2 years ago or 5 years ago.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely
rights are being taken away from women. I know. This is so, you know, when I was in college, it's always, something like that is always incredibly personal and can weigh on a couple or an individual heavily. But now, depending on where you are in this country, I mean, you know, kind of shit's hitting the fan and rights are being taken away. I mean, this is an incredibly significant issue. And it's frightening. I think for young people across the country, young women, this can be a very frightening topic because you start to run out of options depending on where you are exactly. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Again, regardless of our niche of theater and how a child can affect your career in that way, I mean, that's young women across the country who are in high school, who are in college, who, if you become pregnant, what are you going to choose to do? And then as far as our field, I think and I hope that it's become slightly more, diverse and slightly more accepting of, women who choose to become pregnant, who choose to be mothers, who, I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I'm not completely convinced. I have a child. I did not act when I was pregnant. I was actually directing a show when I was pregnant with my son, and that was fine and very accepting. But I think it probably weighs more on actors than it does on other people in the industry. I think you can still, find yourself directing or costuming or designing, but and again, I hope I'm wrong, but I haven't seen too many pregnant women on stage, and I'd like to see more. I think that we should be, opening up those doors too.
I don't know details, but I've heard stories through equity contracts and things like that where maternity leave and options for daycare and things like that are definitely on the table, if you will. So hopefully this generation will make a difference in terms of things like that.
Yeah, I saw an audition posting last week, and I can't remember the company, but I know that they had a policy where there was sign-up daycare in order to attend the audition. They were offering some daycare. It was the first time I'd seen that. First time I was like, my eyes went wide. I was like, really? This is shocking. This is amazing. So, and it wasn't at the Equity Audition Center, but it was an equity audition happening somewhere else. Mm-hmm.
Now, an interesting thing. I'm old school in the sense musicals have to have a 50-person chorus and 37 sets and an orchestra and all of that. But again, here's the paradigm shift. You have 4 people on stage telling this massive story. Tell us an intimate musical like that. Give us the scoop on that. How is it to create the universe with just 4 people?
Well, we have 4 people, but they are huge voices, and they're going to fill the space and fill the stage. I mean, that's what this piece was designed as. That it's a story. I mean, the book really holds up, and it's the concept of the inner workings of what happens behind the scenes at theater school, and you don't need all the bells and whistles. You don't need 50 chorus members to do that. In fact, it would probably take away from it.
So the intimacy works on this. If anything, it helps it because you're talking about someone's personal story, and you don't need to hear 20 dancers behind them, relating the story. It's right from their heart.
Right. No, you really don't. But what's fun is there's several moments where you have a play within a play, where they're rehearsing Moliere.
Oh, brilliant.
They're rehearsing their professor's Bible musical, which is hysterical. And then later they're rehearsing a thesis project. So there's these really fun little internal moments where you get the 4 of them kind of doing the bells and whistles of, we're putting on musical theater. So you've got that duality. You've got the more natural, I hate to say naturalistic, but you've got the naturalistic, we're singing at each other. I'm singing to my scene partner because this is our story. And then you've got we're breaking the 4th wall and we're rehearsing our campy little musical. So that's fun, it's just a lot of fun.
So you're sort of taking out the suspension of disbelief, all of a sudden you're going to break out in song in the middle of Times Square, but so it becomes really a very real piece all the way around, even the notion of singing to each other.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's great. I think that's excellent. Orson Welles said he could never understand how people could break out into song and consider and make the audience believe it. So I guess the Green Room would be his next favorite musical. You normally, well, not normally, but I know your last thing that I remember reading was you did Chekhov. So you're used to authors who are no longer with us. You have the composer, the author, the producer, the writers. You have them all right there breathing down your neck. How is that? How is that to have them all alive and right there next to you?
I mean, I have no qualms about that at all. It's really, I enjoy collaboration. I really do. So as fun as it is to, take a classic and kind of pull it apart and twist it around and totally do your own spin on it. I find joy in coming together with other theatricals and really, putting out something that is collaborative, that's ours, and yeah, I'm also the kind of person that, I don't know, I try to make it easy on everybody too. And I want to know what their parameters are. So when I first met the writers, it was on a conference call and I asked those questions like, I see some ad-libbing going on in a recording of this show that was done in California. Are we keeping that? Do you expect that? I see some specific choreography. Do you expect me to recreate what was done or make it my own? So we had, a lot of that is just, again, setting up the expectations. And they were very open to use it or don't use it. It's yours. Roll with it. Like, great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a relief.
And there were, other parameters. Yeah. And there are other parameters around the casting because we really wanted to have this musical that is traditionally cast as 4 white people be diverse. So we had one person say they really wanted to see body diversity. We had myself say I want to see ethnic diversity. And we have like a brother and sister in the play. So we're like, okay, do they have to be a traditional brother and sister? Could they be, could one of them be adopted? That kind of thing. And the answer to all of it was, yes, we'll make it work. And at the same time, we're going to cast the best people that come along. So, we had some parameters to work with. And at the end of the day, we do have a Hispanic in as one of our leads. And we,
That's great.
Somebody who's of weight to show the body diversity.
Oh, bless you. Good. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. I thought I was the only pudgy person in America when I watched television or Broadway. Oh, thank you so much. Good. I'm so happy to hear that.
The tricky part is casting for understudies. And we, that was like, all right, how are we going to do this when our 2 males are supposed to be physically very different? One is like the jock and one's the skinny, scrawny nerd.
Right.
How are we casting our understudy here? And the same thing with the females. One is petite and thin, and the other one's heavier. And it's like curvy. How do we cast and in both cases, it was really just about someone like right in the middle, right in the middle physically. But it's one of those things that affects the casting. You're
of course.
Well, I love this actor, but I can't figure out how to cast them given our parameters.
Right.
And the same thing with age. We had some Broadway people show up to our audition, and some of the men had bald spots. I'm like, well, can I justify casting you as a 19-year-old college student? So you have to think. We're going to cast everybody up or everybody down, but it's going to look really weird if that guy with the bald spot is supposed to be, the little brother to that little girl who really is 19.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so.
There used to be the big joke at Beverly Hills 90210 because they were all well in their 30s when they did the show, and so people used to. There was many an article that would giggle about such a thing. Last question on Green Room. Where do you actually? Last two questions. Where do you hope it goes? Every director in the world, when I say, okay, you're doing the show, what do you want? What do you see it happening with this show?
Great. I hope it goes to awards. So Drama Desk, I hope it gets picked up for a longer run, and whether that continues off-Broadway. And it could probably be more appropriate to continue like a long, open-ended off-Broadway run. But hey, if somebody wants to take it to Broadway, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
That might be very.
I do think.
Yeah.
I do think that that the show is deserving of, a longer run to be
of
seen.
The major praise. Good. And it's interesting that you started by saying you wanted to go off-Broadway because this show salutes off-Broadway. It's sort of Merrily We Roll Along, but they're not going to Broadway, they're going off-Broadway, which again, there's your millennial touch. It's realistic. It's what to expect as opposed to a pipe dream. So that's really excellent. Now, I know you were written up recently in Drama Queens, and you made the point now of talking about pregnancy. So I ask you, you're like the only woman on that team. As I've seen photos, it's Jessica and the Old Boys Club. How is that? How is it to be the only miss in a room full of misters?
Oh, it's fine. It's great. I like the attention, actually. But no, there's other women joining the team. Our ASM is female. We've had a designer working on and off with us who's also female. So, But
good.
yeah, it's all good. I love it. It's great.
Good. So it's being co-edited. So that's great. Okay. Now, when you're not there, and as a matter of fact, even before this opens, you have another show, 2071, and that's opening through Ripple Effect Artists. And you guys take the notion of bringing world affairs to your audiences in a really powerful way. Tell me about Ripple Effect.
Ripple Effect Artists is basically out there to present theater that themes around social justice. We unpack issues through theater. So a play about bullying or a play about, or a season, we'll do we did a whole season on sex trafficking. Our season this year is all about climate disruption.
Right.
Addressing that through theater. In the last few years, we've become multi-platform. So we've taken on poetry, spoken word, cabaret. We've had a dancer, world-famous dancer, that we produced for an evening. And, showing that, art has an impact. And, we always come from this notion, if art's going to have an impact, let's make sure it has, a beautiful message and ripples out, like goodwill. So we try to take our show and make sure that even if it's disturbing, you can't do a sex trafficking play and have it be not disturbing. That's really graphic material. That we conclude with a talk back, and it's not usually the artists doing the talk back. It's usually that we've partnered with an organization who has boots on the ground, who's going to connect the dots between what was just seen on stage, with the drama on stage, and connect that to what's actually happening in the real world, and then leave our audience, should they choose to do anything, like take an action step or sign a petition, we'll leave them with a solution so that they can, carry it forward in the world or ripple out. And that's the whole idea behind a ripple effect. So one dialogue, one conversation, and then carried out. So they walk home and they were educated. And if nothing else, they can tell somebody. I went to see this show and, there was this organization, here's a resource. And we've had people tell us that they recommended the organizations that we've worked with to other people.
That's great. So you really take the parable of the message. You really take the power of that message. You show it to us in the parable of an art form, and then you're able to raise the lights and say, okay, now let's talk about what we've seen. So you really educate your audience to the fullest on this.
Yes.
That is great. Oh, that is really great. Do you come up any obstacles? Anything? Because this is a very powerful thing you're doing. Any obstacles? Have you gotten any pushback, or are there? What's the obstacles in presenting theater so powerfully like this, so realistically, if you will?
Yeah. I think that it's describing what we do on paper has been an obstacle. We're getting better at it. We've started winning grants. We've won 3 grants this year so far.
Oh, great.
But getting to that level, that's like a big thing. When we say we are creating a new paradigm and we do talkbacks, then we've been counseled, and people in the grant-making world have told us, but everybody does talkbacks. Ours are really different. We do a talkback after every single show, and 90% of our audience stay. So it's very different from how talkbacks typically occur in the theatrical world. It's really like our signature, and it really is something we groom our audiences. They know it's coming, and they're there to stay for it.
How is it different?
Well, I think a lot of theater that do talkbacks will do their run and have one night or 2 nights.
For sure, yes.
There's a talkback experience, and that often would actually be more with the actors or the artists who were involved in the creation of the work, and not so much in partnership with the educational people, the advocates who have boots on the ground. So I feel like it is quite different in that way.
So you bring up professionals in the field as well. So they're able to share their intellect with the audience as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Way cool. That's really excellent. That's really brilliant. I've seen so many talkbacks that there's pre-designed questions and more of just a continuance of the entertainment, just from a trivial point of view. It sounds like this is really a learning lesson that you're handing your audience. Yeah, we want to make sure they walk home educated and with a solution in their pocket if they want to ripple forward any, action on climate change, for example. And the production coming up is happening at the Episcopal Actors Guild at 1 East 29th Street. It's happening August 1st to 11th. And we have 2 groups that we've been speaking to that will be participating in our talkbacks. Those groups are 350.org and 2020 or Bust. So they're both going to be participating during the talkback sessions. That's great, and this is for 2071, and basically this depicts what the world's going to be like in 50 or so years, and it's not a happy play. It's not a musical. It's not. It's a one-man show. It's a lot like a TED Talk. It was premiered in 2014. It was co-written by a climate scientist named Chris Rapley and a playwright, Duncan McMillan, who's quite well known, and they actually, like our director, this is another example of working with living playwrights. Our director wrote them. Our director is female. Her name is Karen Zakes. She's wonderful. She wrote them saying, what are my parameters here? Are we going to update the material or stay in 2014? Because this information, it's very information-based. It's dated, even just being 5 years old, it's a little dated. And what they did was they said, we want it to live inside of the time it was written, and we are going to write you an epilogue or prologue. I forget which one they wrote, but they wrote some new material to go with the play. And, the director having that confinement of, okay, we're not updating
this to 2019. So now let's create some design elements to go along with our projections. Let's design it in a way where it's incredibly clear, and we continue to remind the audience that this material is from 2014. So it's one of those phenomenal experiences of like working with boundaries, and boundaries are a great thing for artists. Phenomenal. I think Duke Ellington said, the best material he ever wrote was for Ella Fitzgerald because she had such a limited vocal range that it really made him have to be more creative to work within those boundaries.
He had to focus on what he had. Yeah. Ella Fitzgerald. Okay. May we all have a difficult task of writing for someone like Ella Fitzgerald. It seems to me you really appreciate the reality that theater brings. The glitz and glamour is not in your purview necessarily. It's you enjoy the reality. I'm hearing this from Greenroom, and I'm hearing this now obviously from Ripple Effect artists that how important reality is to you in terms of being an artist.
I do. I mean, I enjoy glitz and glamour too. I grew up in the ballet world, and there's something about the fantasy that I love. But at the end of the day, it's always like the human relationship, the heart and soul of a piece. No matter how fantastical it goes. But yeah, I'm not. Gosh, I just say. So when I was dancing, our teacher would say something like, if you just want to put your leg behind your ear, go to the circus. But if you want to dance on stage, use your face. Like how important it was to, in the world of you're on stage in dancing too, use your face, have an expression. We weren't raising contortionists, so I think that's influenced me quite a lot. It doesn't matter however many bells and whistles you get or not get. It's, having a human on stage expressing their heart and soul.
Gorgeous. That's exactly right. Jessica, thank you so much for speaking with us. I will tell our listeners exactly how to find out how we're screwing up the world in 2071. And I will also let them know they can then come back a month later and toe tap to the next level of musical theater for the Green Room. Terrific speaking to you. Thank you so much. At last I got you. You're a part of history. I definitely wanted to speak to someone like you. Really terrific. I'll make sure our listeners know all about everything, and it has been a joy speaking to you today.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Ciao.
So, a million years ago, or at least what I think is about 30 years ago, I wrote, directed, and produced my own musical. Yes, I was insane all the time. One of the tunes extolled the joys and profitability of Off-Broadway. I am beyond thrilled that this talented team has picked up the cause of Off-Broadway and packaged it so compellingly. More on the Green Room as time goes on. But meanwhile, my time is up. So until next time,